Winter 1942. The fate of the world hangs in the balance. How did a single city on the Volga River become the graveyard of the German army and the turning point of the Second World War? This is the story of courage, desperation, and the moment history changed forever. By the summer of 1942, Adolf Hitler's armies had swept across Europe like a storm. France had fallen in weeks, the Balkans were crushed, and deep inside the Soviet Union, Operation Barbarossa, the largest invasion in history, had driven the Red Army back thousands of miles. The Nazi war machine seemed unstoppable, but Hitler's eyes were now fixed on the south, toward the oil-rich Caucasus. Controlling those resources could fuel the German war effort for years. And on the way to that prize lay a city whose name made it irresistible. Stalingrad, an industrial powerhouse producing tanks, weapons, and tractors, a critical transport hub on the Volga River. And, perhaps most dangerously for both sides, it bore the name of Joseph Stalin himself. For Hitler, taking Stalingrad would not only cripple Soviet industry, it would be a crushing psychological blow to his greatest enemy. He believed the city would fall in weeks. Instead, it would become the place where his dreams of conquest began to die. In August 1942, the Luftwaffe opened the assault with one of the most devastating bombing raids of the war. In just hours, entire districts were reduced to rubble, killing tens of thousands. But amid the flames and dust, the people of Stalingrad refused to flee. Stalin issued his infamous Order No. 227, not one step back. Every street, every building, every brick would be fought over, and as the German army advanced into the ruins, they were about to enter a kind of battle no one had ever seen before. By late summer, the German Sixth Army had reached the outskirts of Stalingrad. What they saw was a city already broken, its skyline shredded by bombs, its streets littered with the dead. Yet inside, the Soviets were waiting. The Luftwaffe's opening assault killed tens of thousands in a single day. But the rubble it created became the Soviets' greatest ally. Every collapsed wall, every crater, every burned-out tram was a fortress. Fighting here was unlike anything the Germans had faced before. They called it Rattenkrieg, Rat War, a savage, room-to-room struggle where the front line could be the floor above you or the wall beside you. Among the defenders was sniper Vasily Zaitsev, who hunted German officers in the ruins, sometimes waiting days for a single shot. His kills became legend, boosting Soviet morale and sowing fear among the enemy. In another part of the city, Sergeant Yakov Pavlov and his men fortified an apartment block. For nearly 2 months, they repelled constant attacks, earning it the name Pavlov's House. To the Germans, it was a small building. To the Soviets, it was a symbol of defiance. But for every sniper's victory and every heroic stand, the cost was staggering. Streets were painted red with blood. Soldiers froze in the snow at night, only to fight hand-to-hand in the morning. Civilians lived in cellars, emerging only to collect the bodies. By November, the battle had raged for nearly 3 months. The Germans still believed victory was close, but the Soviets were preparing something that would turn the hunters into the hunted. By late autumn of 1942, the Germans believed they were close to victory. They had captured most of Stalingrad, their banners flew over the ruins, and Hitler was certain the final pockets of resistance would soon collapse. But in the shadows, the Red Army had been preparing something far more dangerous than anyone inside the city suspected. Beyond the frozen Volga, Soviet planners were quietly amassing forces, entire armies hidden in the vast steppes north and south of Stalingrad. Supplies, tanks, and fresh troops were moved under cover of night. This was Operation Uranus, a massive counter-offensive designed not to push the Germans back, but to encircle them completely. The plan targeted the weaker flanks of the German Sixth Army, positions held not by elite troops, but by overstretched Romanian, Hungarian, and Italian divisions. The Germans, obsessed with street fighting inside Stalingrad, never imagined they were walking into a trap. Day after day, the Soviets tightened their preparations, masking their buildup behind deceptive radio chatter and misleading troop movements. And then, on the morning of November 19, 1942, the steppe erupted. Soviet artillery unleashed a thunderous barrage. Tanks and infantry surged forward through blizzards and smoke, smashing into the unsuspecting Axis flanks. In just days, the trap began to close. Two great Soviet pincers advanced relentlessly toward one another, their jaws set to snap shut around the entire German Sixth Army. What had been a siege of Stalingrad was about to become something far worse, a siege inside Stalingrad. The final weeks of Stalingrad were a nightmare of cold, hunger, and relentless Soviet assaults. Disease swept through the trapped German forces, frostbite claimed fingers and toes, and after months of fighting in darkness, civilians who had survived in basements and shelters began to emerge, blinking against the pale winter sun, haunted by the destruction around them. By January 31st, 1943, even General Paulus could no longer hold the front. He surrendered a portion of his forces, knowing there was no way to continue the fight. The German army, once seen as invincible, was unraveling in the ruins of a city they could never fully control. 2 days later, on February 2nd, the collapse was complete. The remainder of the Sixth Army surrendered. Over 91,000 men were captured, many sick, starving, and frostbitten. The survivors of Stalingrad would spend months in captivity, their bodies and spirits broken, a stark testament to the cost of Hitler's obsession. Stalingrad was more than a military defeat. It was a symbol of Soviet endurance, of human suffering, and of the turning point that would change the Eastern Front and the course of World War II forever. The cost of Stalingrad was staggering. By the time the battle ended, an estimated 2 million people had been killed, wounded, or missing, soldiers and civilians alike. Families torn apart, homes destroyed, a city left in ruins. Yet despite everything, Stalingrad had never fallen to the enemy. The city had held. For the Soviet people, the victory was more than symbolic. It was proof that their endurance and sacrifice could repel even the mightiest army in the world. And for the Germans, it was a shocking reality. The Wehrmacht, long considered invincible, had been defeated. Strategically, Stalingrad marked a turning point. The first major defeat of the German army on the Eastern Front shattered their aura of invincibility. Momentum shifted irreversibly. From the ashes of Stalingrad, the Soviets began the long, grueling push westward, inch by bloody inch, toward Berlin. Stalingrad became more than a battlefield. It became a symbol of resilience, of human sacrifice, and of the moment when the tide of war turned. From this shattered city, the path to victory, hard-fought and costly, had begun.